Have you ever noticed feeling powerless in conflict? Well, I have. And that could be because we've been trained to accommodate society in conflict instead of figuring out how we can be true to our own voice without burning down the house. But hey, what if there's a playbook for navigating conflict with confidence and without becoming someone you're not? Hi, my name's Kim. I'm a classical East Asian medicine provider and a Taoist practitioner. So what about this playbook? Enter Sun Tzu's The Art of War. And yeah, this is a 2,500-year-old military strategy book, but stay with me. Why this ancient text actually gets us. Because Sun Tzu wasn't just writing for warriors. He was writing for anyone who's ever felt outmaneuvered, underestimated, or stuck in a no-win situation. And his core lesson is know yourself, know your opponent, and you'll never lose your power in the battle. So let's translate that for modern life. Conflict isn't about winning, it's about understanding. And the more you see the real stakes, your stakes and their stakes, the less you're going to waste your energy on fights that don't matter. And the better you're going to advocate for yourself without burning bridges. So the best part, this isn't about becoming ruthless. It's about clarity. What do I really want? It's about strategy. How can I get there without self-betrayal? And it's about power. It's the kind of power that comes from choice and not force. So, ready to ditch the old fight or flight programming? Let's see if we can rewrite the rules. I love this quote from The Art of War. It comes from the Lionel Gill's translation. Know the enemy and know yourself. And in 100 battles, you will never be in peril. When you are ignorant of the enemy, but you know yourself, well, your chances of winning or losing are equal. And if you're ignorant of both your enemy and yourself, well, you're certain to be in peril in every battle. So that's from the Lionel Gill's translation, and that is chapter 3. What's remarkable about this quote is that it highlights the two scales of knowledge that enable you to be effective in resolving conflict. And The Art of War states the most successful conflict is going to be the one without a battle. So you end up with a winning strategy for navigating conflict successfully while achieving the desired outcome. It's about negotiating so that all parties can feel successful. And here's the thing, if a solution is forced on someone, then the conflict never ends. It actually escalates, right? If you try to stop a river with a dam, you can stop the flow. But unless you consider other options to allow the river to flow, the river is going to overflow and break the dam. And that's what came up in clinic this week. Dealing with conflict in families and trying to work with the flow of the river without causing a flood. There is something really unique about Taoism that I'm really just kind of coming to grips with right now. Taoism is about opening your spiritual gates to your destiny and finding your grounding and your voice. And part of that is that they believe that you are to meet the person where they are, not where you want them to be or where you are. And there are times when the most effective method of handling conflict is going to feel dirty, dishonest, or just plain wrong. And that's not unusual in conflict, yet Taoism wants you to understand the motive of another individual and how to meet the individual where they're at, not where you want them to be or where you're at. So if someone's like misusing power or greed or is just extremely selfish, you're probably going to have to handle a conflict in one of these uncomfortable ways. And then there's judgment. Judgment is one of those actions where we're trying to meet someone where we're at. Judgment identifies our pain. It's not about the situation. And a judgment I hear a lot tied to women is, you always want to win. Well, let's be real. That is not their pain point. And why it's not their pain point is because, let's be real, most people like winning. Winning is the fun thing. It's not the unfun thing. Can you imagine us going up to the two baseball teams in the World Series right now, LSU and Coastal Carolinas, and saying, you always have to win? Yeah, that would be like crazy talk. We actually think winning is a good thing. So that's a judgment based on a speaker's pain point. And for some reason, they are feeling like the conversation is a competition instead of a group work together. And so judgment, it's trying to meet the person where we are instead of where they are. And it has a tendency to always make the situation worse. So I want to tell you a story about my cats and how they schooled me in boundaries, self-awareness, and the power of meeting others where they're at. So spoiler alert, this is really a story about us. But here's the cast. The cast is Georgie, my black cat, and she's an only child who actually thinks she's human. She was abandoned in our backyard. I've spoiled her rotten. So she believes cuddles are her birthright. And that kind of translates that she's a friend who's fiercely independent, but low-keyed, terrified of needing anyone. And then there's Bunny. She was the cool girl at the humane shelter who turned out to be this huge PTSD trauma queen. She was rescued from a hoarding situation. She's used to being around a lot of cats, and she came armed with all this emotional baggage and these Bengal claws of doom. So her story is she's a part of us that masks anxiety with bravado and then just melts down when she's rejected. And the drama that was playing out between these two kitties is, I had thought Georgie needed a friend. Well, spoiler alert, apparently she did not. And then there's Bunny, and her anxiety had her desperate for kitty comfort. So she kept on invading Georgie's space, and Georgie, who never identified as a cat, responded with a SWAT, right? A boundary setting. Boundaries, but it was rude. And this triggered Bunny, who felt rejected, heartbroken, and it escalated to a claws out warfare. So does that sound familiar? Have you ever tried to fix someone or yourself by forcing connection? Or have you ever judged your own anxiety as just too much, or someone else's boundaries as too cold? Well, here's what I learned and how I avoided a smackdown between these two cats. The first, is Sun Tzu's idea of knowing yourself. So knowing your inner Georgie. So Georgie, she wasn't mean. She just didn't know how to be a cat. She'd been taught that love equals human attention. So think about this. Where have you been mislabeled? Maybe as a people pleaser, or being too sensitive, or always wanting to win. What I learned is you have to own your own needs without judging them. Georgie wasn't wrong for wanting space. She just needed to figure out how to communicate it better. And then Sun Tzu says, know your opponent, right? Or know your inner Bunny. Well, Bunny wasn't aggressive. She was terrified. So to discipline her would backfire because it would scream, your fear is unacceptable. So think about that. Where do you or others mask your pain with annoying behaviors like over apologizing or maybe defensiveness? And what I learned is, here's the thing, punishment never heals fear. I had to see Bunny and say, I see you're scared. Let's try safety first. That's about meeting them where they're at. So what I did is when this smackdown started, I would start to call Bunny's name before she spiraled out of control. And then I would go up and I would hug her. And I had to leave her feet on the ground because that was her safety point. And that kind of taught me that we need to reframe the conflict. So instead of, ugh, why are you so clingy? It's just saying, oh, she was asking for reassurance and the only way she knows. And instead of, I'm too much, how about I need connection and that's okay. So here's a miracle. By doing this for Bunny, giving her the affection and attention she needed, she learned to pause and to choose calm when she interacted with Georgie. And Georgie actually, weirdly enough, learned to tolerate her closeness because it was on her terms. And then I learned true strength isn't winning the battle, it's changing the game. So here it is, it's your turn. What if you had to find your inner Georgie? Where do you need to set boundaries without feeling guilt? What about finding your inner Bunny? Where do you need to say, I'm not too much? I just need to find a safer way to ask. Rewrite the script. Conflict isn't about good versus bad. It's about unmet needs speaking different languages. So here's the bottom line. Your voice isn't found in winning fights. It's found in understanding what's really being fought over. And yeah, okay, so now the cats, they nap near each other. So it's progress. It might not be perfection. Think about what cat you might be today, because it can be anyone, any day. Are you one that needs more space or are you one that needs reassurance today? Both are valid. And if you find yourself in a conflict that is escalating, especially in a family situation, it may be one of these two things: mislabeling what they're asking or being confused about what it means to you. Okay, until next time, I'll catch you on the other side.